Okay, so this is part 2, and like I said, so Nancy Schaefer did not get to see her life's work, like, because her and her husband supposedly murder-suicide an unmarked gun. Bruce Schaefer was a huge supporter of her work. They were married for over 50 years. She was getting multiple death threats over the documentary that she was about to release. But she had such a heart of gold that she knew her work was more important, and she was willing to risk her life to save the children. This woman is amazing. She is my hero. Okay. That the incentives for social workers to return children to the parents quickly after taking them has disappeared, and who in protective services will step up to the plate and say this must end. Trump did! Love him! No one. Because they are all in the system together, and a system with no leader, no clear policies will always fail the children. Look at the waste in government that is forced upon the taxpayer. That the policy manual is considered the last word for DFCS or CPS, like I said. However, it is too long, too confusing, poorly written, does not take the law into consideration. She was a lawyer, so she knows what the fuck she's talking about. And then a lawyer can't even understand this shit, and they're expecting, parents that aren't very, don't have much money, so they typically don't have a very high level of education to understand these complex. This shit is so complex. I had printed out or read through this shit. I see what she's saying. It's very confusing and complex. And then, it's like they always have rules to change this rule, and if that rule applies, and this one, yeah, they play a bunch of bullshit games. That if the lives of children were improved by removing them from their homes, there might be a greater need for protective services. But today, all children are not always safer. Children of who I am aware of have been raped and impregnated in foster care. And the head of Foster Parents Association in my district was recently arrested because of child molestation. That some parents are even told that if they want to see their children or grandchildren, they must divorce their spouse. Many who are underprivileged, feeling they have no option, will divorce and then just to continue to live together. See, what they'll do is they'll accuse one parent of something, so then the other parent, to retain custody, then they have to break apart from the other parent. Like, say a father is accused of molestation, then they have to divorce. And this one, I loved her. My Candy. She was human trafficked. I met her in jail. She was part of the foster care system. There was 11 kids. Her parents had 11 kids. She was born with a short urethra, which caused her to get a lot of UTIs as a child. They accused the father of molesting her, took her, left all the rest of the brothers and sisters. These people were very young at the time, and they were being threatened, if they went up against CPS, that they would take the rest of the children. And she even told me, she was like, that never happened. She went to 17 different homes from the age of 8 to 16. 17 different homes. Inmates would joke in there to themselves, they're like, yeah, I was never molested before foster care, but I sure as hell was after. I didn't hear one good story from any of the inmates that came from group homes. Not one good story. Then just continue to live together. This is anti-family policy, but parents will do anything to get their children home with them. fathers, non-custodial parents, I must add, are oftentimes treated as criminals without access to their own children and have child support payments strangling the very life out of them. Yeah, you gotta pay child support and then you can't even afford to fucking buy a lawyer. You know how much a lawyer is? A retainer is about $3,000 and it's anywhere between $200 to $300 an hour. Yeah, and they pay their paralegals to do most of the fucking work anyways. They pay their paralegals $15 an hour and they'll charge you $300 an hour. Yeah, you'll definitely get fucked if you don't have money in court. That the foster parent's Bill of Rights does not bring out that a foster parent is there only to care for a child until the child can be returned home. Many foster parents today use the foster parent's Bill of Rights to hire a lawyer. See, they can hire a lawyer. CPS only gives the other people a lawyer. Gives them a lawyer that they pay for, so they work for CPS. And seek to adopt the child from the real parents who are desperately trying to get their child home and out of the system. That tax dollars are being used to keep this gigantic system afloat, yet the victims' parents, grandparents, guardians, and especially the children are charged for the system's services. That grandparents have called from all over the state of Georgia trying to get custody of their grandchildren. CPS claims relatives are contacted, but there are cases that prove differently. Grandparents who lose their grandchildren to strangers have lost their own flesh and blood. The children lose their family heritage and grandparents, and parents, too, lose all connections to their heirs. People were so impressed when I could read this to them and show it wasn't just your parents that left you. There could have been a lot more going on. That the National Center on Child Abuse and Neglect in 1998 reported that 6 times as many children died in foster care than in the general public, and that once removed to official safety, these children are far more likely to suffer abuse, including sexual molestation, than in general population. That according to the California Little Hoover Commission report in 2003, 30% to 70% of children in California group homes do not belong there and should not have been removed from their homes. Final remarks. On my desk are scores of cases of exhausted families and troubled children. It has been beyond me to turn my back on these suffering, crying, and sometimes beaten down individuals. We are mistreating the most innocent. Child Protective Services has become adult-centered to the detriment of children. No longer is judgment based on what the child needs or who the child wants to be with or what is really best for the whole family. It is some adult or bureaucracy who makes the decisions based often on just hearsay. Hearsay means like they just said it. We don't have real evidence. It's just somebody said it. Yeah, a couple dirty little fucking pricks like to pull that game without ever consulting a family member or just what is convenient, profitable, or less troublesome for a director of CPS. I have witnessed such injustice and harm brought to these families that I am not sure if I even believe reform of the system is possible. The system cannot be trusted. It does not serve the people. It obliterates families and children simply because it has the power to do so. Children deserve better. Families deserve better. It's time to pull back the curtains, set our children and families free. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the right of all are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. Proverbs 31:8-9. Recommendations. Call for an independent audit of the Department of Family and Children's Services to expose corruption and fraud. Yeah, piss those fuckers off because they deserve it. I love one parent was like, "Get the fuck out of here, you baby snatchers." I love it when they give them shit. I mean, I feel bad for the good caseworkers that get into it with good hearts, but so much more often, these good caseworkers that saw what's going on, they became advocates against it, just like Carlos Morales. His speeches will blow your mind. He is so smart. Okay, activate immediate change. Every day that passes means more families and children are subject to being held hostage and the financial incentives that separate families. Grant to parents their rights in writing. Yeah, they love to play their little bullshit games. Mandate a search for family members to be given the opportunity to adopt their own relatives. See, they make more money when they don't keep the children within the family. Mandate a jury trial where every piece of evidence is presented before removing a child from his or her parents. Yeah, see, that's the thing. They do it in secrecy. I want 12 fucking people sitting there hearing the bullshit that they're trying to peddle out. That's what needs to fucking happen. Because, I mean, if it's a pedophile and stuff like that, like, they're put on the sex registry, and you could keep the child a secret, but expose the adults and let people see what's going on. Require a warrant or a positive emergency circumstance before removing children from their parents. Okay. Uphold the laws. When somebody fabricates or presents false evidence, if a parent alleges fraud, hold a hearing with the right to discovery of all evidence. I'll try to get through these stories before my phone cuts out again. Jeremy's story. As told to Senator Nancy Schaefer by Sandra, a foster parent of Jeremy for 2.5 years. My husband and I received Jeremy when he was only 2 weeks old and have been the only parents that he has really ever known. He lived with us for 27 months. Is the grandfather of Jeremy. It X's out the name. So blank is the grandfather of Jeremy, and he is known for molesting his own children, for molesting Jeremy, and has been court-ordered not be around Jeremy. Blank is the mother of Jeremy, who has been diagnosed to be mentally ill and also is known to have molested Jeremy. Blank and Jeremy's uncle is a registered sex offender, and blank is the biological father, who is a drug addict and alcoholic who continues to be in and out of jail. Having just described Jeremy's world, all of these adults are not to be any part of Jeremy's life, yet for years CPS has known that they are. CPS had to test the grandfather and his own son and the uncle to determine the real father. Is the biological father blank is the biological father, although any of them might have been. In court, it appeared from the case study that everyone involved knew that this little boy had been molested by family members, even by his own mother. In court, and the mother of Jeremy admitted to having had his own mother blank. It's hard because it's blank on all the names. In court, blank, the mother of Jeremy admitted to having had sex with blank, the grandfather, and blank, her own brother, that morning. Judge blank and CPS gave Jeremy to his grandmother that same day. The grandmother is over 300 pounds, is unable to drive, is unable to take care of Jeremy due to physical problems. She has also been in a mental hospital several times due to her behavior. So they ripped away from good foster parents. That's the thing. It's like there's so many good foster parents, and then they'll take the kid from a good foster home and then put it back into a shitty home. But then when people are trying their hardest, then they'll just keep taking the kids. It's like, it doesn't fucking make sense how they decide these cases. And I have read many, many, many cases to say it doesn't make any fucking sense how they rule on them. Even though it was ordered by the court that the grandfather, the uncle, his mother, and his biological father, a convicted drug addict, were not to have anything to do with the child, they all continue to come and go as they please at the grandmother's address, where Jeremy has been sentenced to live for years. The residence has no bathroom and little heat. The front door and the windows are boarded. The home should have been condemned years ago. I have been in this home. No child should ever have to live with such people. Jeremy was taken from us at age 2.5. When my ex did his shit, it was when my son was 2. It fucking ripped my heart out. Because at least my daughter knew. My daughter knew that they did some bullshit. Like, she was old enough. I didn't even have to tell her. She knew that they did bullshit. Because she knew I didn't deserve that. She'll send me Christmas cards telling me how I'm the best mother ever and thank you for being in her life. And even if she can't see me, she'll be sure to see me as soon as she grows up. You're a fucking prick, Jerry Tisdale. You're a fucking prick. Yeah, he goes and knocks up some dumb bimbo in another state and all of a sudden... Yeah. And then you handed over my 2-year-old baby to a man that fucking slapped him hard enough for it to last over 12 hours. I was arrested for hitting a grown-ass man with a diaper bag when he wasn't even hurt. The baby was handed right over to the baby slapper. Judge Kelly Pope Black saw the pictures. She knew what the fuck was going on. She went and granted him full custody. Kelly Pope Black, you're gonna go burn in hell one day. I'd be afraid. I would be terrified if I did such shitty things to people, what was going to come to me in the afterlife. So he was taken from these good foster care parents at 2.5 years old after they had him since he was 2 weeks old. Blank obtained an attorney who was the same attorney who represented him in a large settlement from an auto accident. I am told that this attorney, as grandfather's attorney, is known to have repeatedly gotten off of several criminal charges in White County. This is a matter of record and is known by many in White County. I have gotten copies and some records. The grandfather, through the attorney's work, got the custody, and the grandmother, Jeremy, legal custody of Jeremy. Grandfather, who cannot read or write, also got his daughter and son diagnosed by government agencies as mentally ill. Through legal channels, has taken it upon himself to control all the family and is able to take possession of any government funding coming to these people. It was during this time that Jeremy was to have a 6-month transitional period between the grandmother and my family as we were to give him up. The court order agreement was to have been 4 days at our house and 3 days at her house. CPS stopped the visits within 2 weeks. The reason given by CPS was the child was too traumatized going back and forth. In truth, Jeremy begged us and screamed never to be taken to his grandmother's house, which we have on video. We, as a family, have seen Jeremy in stores time to time with his grandmother and the very people he is not to be around. At each meeting, Jeremy continues to run to us whenever he sees us, and it is clear he is suffering. The child is in a desperate situation, and that this is why I am writing and begging you, Senator Schaefer, to do something on the child's behalf. Jeremy can clearly describe in detail his sexual molestation by every member of his family, and his sexual abuse continues to this day. When Jeremy was 5 years of age, I took him to the doctor, who did indeed agree that Jeremy's rectum was black and blue, and the physical damage to the child was clearly a case of sexual molestation. Early in Jeremy's life, when he was in such bad physical condition, we took him to a children's hospital where at 2 months of age, therapy was to begin 3 times a week. CPS decided that the grandparent family should participate in this therapy. However, the therapist complained over and over that the grandparent family would not even wash their hands and would cause Jeremy to cry during these sessions. After receiving custody, the grandmother, after receiving custody, no longer allowed the therapy because it was inconvenient. The therapist reported that, and it would be a terrible thing to do to this child. Therapy was stopped, and it was detrimental in the health of Jeremy. During the grandmother's custody, the uncle has shot Jeremy with a BB gun, and there is a report in the county sheriff's office. There are several Amber Alerts at Cornell Walmart, Commerce Walmart, and a 911 port, the county sheriff's department, when Jeremy was lost. To teach Jeremy a lesson, he took thorn bush limbs and beat the bottom of his feet. Jeremy's feet got infected, and his feet had to be laced by a doctor. Then Judy called me to pick him up after about 4 days to take him back to the doctor because the intense pain. I took Jeremy to the doctor in Gainesville. Said surgery was needed immediately, and a cast was added. After returning home, his grandfather, his uncle, took him into the hog lot and allowed him to walk in this filth. Jeremy's feet became so infected for the second time that he was taken again back to the doctor in the hospital. Nobody in the hospital could believe this child's living conditions. Jeremy is threatened to keep quiet and not say anything anymore. I have videos, reports, arrest records, almost anything you might need to help Jeremy. Please call my husband or me at any time. Shit makes you fucking sick. Failure of CPS. A brief report regarding 6 children in Hallett County. Director failed to remove as disclosed to Senator Nancy Schaefer by Sheriff Darrell Fisher. Sheriff Darrell Fisher, Chief of Police Don Ford, Chief Investigator Lieutenant Greg Brown, Chief called me to meet with them immediately, which I did Tuesday, October 16th, 2007. Sheriff Fincher, after contacting the director of the Hallett County several times to remove 6 children from being horribly abused, finally got to get a court order to remove the children himself with the help of the 2 officers. The children, 4 boys, 2 girls, were not just being abused, they were being tortured by a monster. The 6 children and a live-in girlfriend were terrified of this man, the abuser. The children never slept in the bed, but always on the floor. The place where they lived was unfit for human habitation. The father, on one occasion, hit one of the boys across his head with a bat and cut the boy's head open. The father then proceeded to hold the boy down and sew up the back of the child's head with a needle and a red thread. However, even with beatings and burnings, this is only a fraction of what the father did to these children and the living girlfriend. Sheriff Fisher had pictures of the abuse and the condition of one of the boys and writings of this report of the father in jail. It should be noted that when CPS director found out the Sheriff Fincher was going to remove the children, she called the father and warned him to flee. This is not the only time this CPS director failed to remove a child when she needed to do so. The outrageous acts, horrible behavior of officials who are supposed to protect the children can no longer be tolerated. That stuff should just make you fucking sick to your stomach. And when that happened with my son, and I told them he slapped him, I went to report the slap that day. I had to wait for my... This is where they fucked up. I called Greenville County Sheriff's Department. They told me I had to go to Malden. Call Malden. They said, yes, you have to come here. So I had to wait for my daughter to get off school. So I can hit somebody and cops can be at my door instantly. Somebody can hit a fucking... He was 18 months old at the time. Somebody can hit an 18-month-old baby and the cops are going to hand him right over. So I get out to Malden, and Malden goes, oh, well, technically this is Greenville's jurisdiction, so you have to wait for a sheriff. It took them 15 minutes to show up after I hit this motherfucker with a diaper bag. It took them an hour to even get a sheriff out there. I had to get to my daughter's school for an event. I go to my daughter's school. I figure I'm just going to report this in the morning, go back in the morning, because it's like, they're not going to do anything at the hospital. It's a slap mark. It's still a slap mark. But I didn't know that you have to go to a doctor to report abuse. I did not know these things because I've never had to do it before. I took pictures of it and everything. And everybody that knows me knows I have never hit my children. I don't even fucking spank my kids. This motherfucker had him for 1 week and had a big old slap mark across the back of an 18-month-old baby's head. And then he waited for me to come home. He has somebody that's very influential in the police force, and if you ever mess with me again, you know who I'm talking about. If you ever see this video, you mess with me again, I'll go and smear your fucking name right through the mud all over again. So I would suggest you never mess with me again, because I'm going to write a book one day, and some shit's going to be revealed like I did in my last blog, but I got to keep my cool somewhat, because last thing I want is, yeah, cops were showing up at my door nonstop then because I went to report the cop. I had a sheriff ride my bumper one night, come to find out that the, so basically like the same sheriffs patrol the same areas. I went to report these officers for what had happened because I'm like, okay, you guys arrest me instantly. You hand the baby over to the man that slapped him. I had picture documentation of this shit. I've been in the medical field over 10 years. There's 3 parallel lines, particularly bruising on the back of an 18-month-old baby's head, and mothers arrested for trying to protect an innocent baby. And this fucking abusive prick, they even had pictures in court of this slap mark. Kelly Pope Black did not even ask one question about it because I screamed at both of them. They're starting their bullshit and then they're shoving a camera in your face. Yeah. I'm not starting bullshit with somebody and then shoving a camera in their face. That's just being a prick, you know? I just handle shit on my own. I'm not gonna go fucking call the cops. Hit with a diaper bag. A grown-ass man hit with a diaper bag has the nerve to call the cops. Biggest fucking pussy in the world. And you hit a baby. And yeah, I get my kids taken for having a criminal domestic violence charge against me and for sending angry text messages and speaking my mind. Well, guess what, motherfuckers? To the end of time, I'm going to speak my mind. But I want people to know that report. And this is ultimately what led me down to have my mental breakdown because it caused me to go into a severe state of mania. So, fuck it. I'll be fucking bipolar because other people have way too many. They got way more bullshit than I do. People that aren't even diagnosed with shit, like, yeah, narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, watch out for those. And save the children. Be an advocate. And know what these fuckers are up to. If they ever show up at your door and you're an innocent parent, be afraid, but be smart and know your rights. Thank you.